Flexible, automated manufacturing capacity, come on over. If you haven't bought your system yet, Ilko will be passing out purchase orders. You have at least until the end of my talk, and he said it's buy one, get one free. So if you buy one, I get mine free. That's how that works. Hey, I woke up this morning in my hotel and couldn't help but take in the beautiful view here in Chicago, and I thought I'd get us started with a question. How many machine components can you find in this photo? It's impossible to count. But it's amazing to see just what the manufacturing industry has done. And to give you a little bit of encouragement, the next time you send out a quote, I want you to keep in mind that just one of the buildings in this photo recently sold for $1.3 billion. So when you think about the value that we help create, I hope you're encouraged. So today we're going to be talking about the promises and perils of automated flexible manufacturing systems. And I don't work for Fastems, but by way of personal introduction, my name is Peter Doyle. I'm the president, CEO, and owner at Hirsch Precision. We were founded in 1979 in beautiful Boulder, Colorado, and recently expanded our operations just over in Frederick, Colorado. Our customers buy from us because we support the entire product life cycle, from prototype to production. They know we're focused on execution, and they know that we provide design for manufacturability consulting, which reduces risk and cost and rework. As leaders, I think it's important that we understand our customers' needs and build an organization to address them. And one of the ways we do that at Hirsch is by using our time, that non-renewable resource, as best we can. Our impact as managers is driven by the leverage we create in guiding decisions, delegating well, and building systems. Automation has been a part of Hirsch and has been a part of using our time well since the 1980s. And what sets our investments apart is the collaboration and technology that's integrated to drive utilization, flexibility, and supply chain resiliency. And that's what I want to spend a few minutes talking about. Now, our journey has not been easy. There have been ups and downs. We've had to adapt our processes, we've had to cultivate our culture, and we've had to develop numerous new capabilities. But at the end of the day, Finland, with their degrees in production economics, have come right out of Santa's workshop, got on their snowmobiles, and come up with some really important ideas. Christmas came early at IMTS, and that's what I want to share with you. So just so we can understand and level set what flexible manufacturing means, it's kind of a generic term, but I want to share that our experience is pretty specific. What we have at our company is a milling connected to two different pallet pools, one 5-axis, one 4-axis. We have 7 Akumas that are plugged in. And turning and lathes are supported by Fastems, but we don't have experience with that. So you can talk to them about that, but I'm just going to address our experience with milling. And we have a total of 69 pallets. One of the things that I do think is important, though, with Fastems is that you're talking about multiple machines, so you need advanced software to support it. It's not the same investment decision as buying one machine. So let's talk a little bit about some of the promises of systems like this. Now, many of these points you're going to, if you haven't already heard it from Fastems, maybe even at other booths. And so I don't want to cover them again. You'll be familiar with them. You've stayed abreast of industry trends. This is something you know. But I'll just touch on a few specific points. One of the things I didn't realize in terms of productivity is that there is a cost to small breaks in your schedule. If you can reduce setup time to near zero, if you can ensure every process is stable and capable, you can run unattended. And so if you accept small variability in your production process, small wrinkles in the fabric, you won't be able to run overnight. And so there's sort of a disproportionate benefit to stabilizing the process. I want to highlight in ensuring precision and quality that second line. reducing variability in machining specifically is critical. We have had to develop numerous new capabilities, and by that I mean skills. Maybe it's an equipment investment, maybe it's training. Things like digital tool management, really tuning in our collision detection, all of the probing. These are existing technologies that we had adapted or adopted partially when we got Fastems, but not entirely. Statistical process control was something that we were able to develop as a result of our investment in Fastems. And then our inspection method also accelerated. We now use wireless hand tools. That reduced our inspection time by 40% and avoided some fat fingering errors. So by making this one investment, numerous other benefits helped our company. I think if I remember this right, Elon Musk has this formula to determine sort of what your overall facility output is in the building. And it's essentially the size of the building times the density of the operations in that building and the velocity of those operations. And I think it's helpful to think about Fastems as driving at least the second two factors, the density and the velocity. In the profitability, I think it's pretty obvious that if you can run unattended and reduce direct labor hours per part, that's going to help your business. The second bullet is probably the most important, right? Ultimately, you as a decision maker are the most valuable resource in the company. So if you have extra time and space in your schedule to tackle other more strategic challenges, that's going to benefit the business as well. I'll talk a little bit about the perils. Making an investment like this is a longer-term commitment than simply buying a machine tool, or even buying a machine tool with a pallet. When we first purchased our Fastems system, we were located in a different building, and we picked the longest stretch of the building because the Fastems systems are like Legos, right? They're modular and scalable. If you happen to have the luxury of building a building simultaneously as purchasing a Fastems system, I would recommend looking at your ceiling height because it'll support centralized tool management and greater density. If I could have a 32-foot clear, I would. There's a number of other implications to purchasing Fastems. I addressed that a little bit on the last page, but you should be prepared for a larger investment, and it's probably inaccurate to compare this with a pallet pool for a single machine, like I've said. There's workforce implications. One of the interesting things that we found is that there's a slight trough in the middle from the skill standpoint. Fastems requires operators to load and unload, and you want to get those procedures sort of put yoke. And then you need very skilled personnel to launch the processes in the first place. It can be a little bit challenging to bridge the difference between those roles. So one of the best ways initially for a Fastems operator to learn is through troubleshooting parts and helping to diagnose anything related to the process and work with the senior machining personnel. But at times we'll rotate them off to other machines and let them set up and learn more actively those skills that they have. I would also highlight some sales and system implications. On the sales side, there's a choice that people have to make, whether to improve legacy work or reserve the Fastems capacity for new parts. That's a case-by-case decision, and we've done both depending on the season. But I want to highlight that that's a little bit of a, you don't want to give up the Fastems capacity too much. You want to be thinking about how much does the part need to repeat in order to make a permanent setup working. Hopefully that makes sense. And then lastly, I would just highlight that the Fastems software is very capable. Some of the inputs and the mindsets that went into designing that software are not the same that go into designing other scheduling software. So our ERP has a different scheduling methodology than Fastems, and one of the lessons we've had to learn is where that push-pull boundary needs to fall in our process. what I really want to talk about for the next few minutes is decision making. If you look across our industry, we're an essential industry, we're highly durable, but because of the capital investment, our businesses move a little bit more slowly. Most of the machining companies in the U.S. have fewer than 20 people. About 85% of machining companies have fewer than 20 people. Small businesses might be defined as those with less than $5 million per year in revenue, and lower mid-market businesses might be defined as those with less than $150 million. So the vast majority of component manufacturers are going to fall in those categories. And in that range of the economy, personal guarantees are fairly common, and there's limited access to funding. So you end up in a situation with, as a component manufacturer, some relatively modest margin, when I say relative to big tech or the OEMs we support, relatively high capital expenditures, limited access to funding, and unlimited liability. And my point under all this is that we are at risk of failing to invest adequately in our businesses because of the uncertainty in the personal guarantee. That structure creates a drag for our decision making. We're more likely to make short-term investments rather than long-term plays. Under any strategy, whether you're focused on a particular market segment, differentiated, or trying to be an overall cost leader, you have to invest in new technology. As a result of this takeover, knowing that there's a tendency to hesitate with investment, I want to talk a little bit about decisions. I read once, success and failures are both terrible teachers. If you're successful, you don't realize that you might have just gotten lucky. And if you fail, you don't realize that it might just be attributable to risk, which you had no control over in the first place. You need personal commitment and passion to succeed in the industry, but you don't be naively optimistic and make investments without proper planning. And as I've wrestled with our growth journey, the ground has shifted beneath my feet as we've achieved that 80% growth. What I've realized is that there's a difference between right and rational decisions. No one at IMTS can tell you if you're making the right decision, because right is something you only know after the decision outcome is known and after it's realized. No one can tell you. It's like the weather guy, right? The only job you can be wrong 50% of the time is still keep. But yeah, exactly, especially in Colorado. But your goal is to be rational, right? To use the information you have to make the best decision and make it more likely that you can understand or that you will succeed. I also would highlight the difference between risk and ignorance. Sometimes people talk about taking risks as if it's necessary and a positive thing. And I would encourage a more mathematical definition that a decision made under risk is something where you know the probabilities of the outcome. Typically, you're looking to optimize the outcome. A decision made under ignorance is one where you don't know the probability of the outcome. And investment decisions, particularly long-term investment decisions, can feel like decisions made under ignorance. So what do you do in this case? I'll give you an example. I think it was around 1967 that the first heart transplant ever occurred. The patient didn't have long to live. The doctor came to him and said, I've successfully transplanted hearts in pigs. I've never done it in a human. Would you like to try it? And so his decision matrix is, well, I'm not going to live long anyway. So if the heart transplant fails, I'm in no worse a position. So I have no downside to trying it. That's an example of what you want to look for in a decision made under ignorance. You want to look for a situation where you can't lose. It's rational, and there's no downside. That is what this investment has meant for Hirsch. When I think about our economy and the need to develop more products more quickly, and I think about increased utilization, reduced cost of goods sold, I'm increasing the odds that our company will be successful. And I'm willing to make those long-term investments. worked for us, as I explained earlier. A couple of tips. Do your research. This is not simply a matter of having the square footage, right? You want to understand what capabilities you might need to budget for, and make sure that you've thought through things like facility ceiling height, or wireless tooling, or updated tool presetter, things like that. I would also say this system does prepare a foundation for growth. You should be prepared for growth. In order to grow, you have to standardize your processes and treat every problem as a systems problem. An easy way to test for that is to say, will this process work if we had 10 times the volume going through it? Those are some of the ideas you want to be thinking through. As we've grown, processes that used to work very well were revealed as being new bottlenecks. There is a learning curve in the system, but it's a fun one. Here's how I would describe the difference between investing without appreciating the change required and investing when you do. If you do it right, you should create low pressure over a win in your organization. Adopting technology, building a culture where people are curious and engaged will naturally create lift. If you don't do it right, if you're a little bit more like Hirsch, where it took us how to be effective, took us a couple of years to figure out how to adopt the technology, well, it'll feel like a little bit hard work. It's still progress, you're still moving up, but you're climbing stairs instead of letting the wind do the work. Just a couple of notes on some of the benefits that aren't going to show up in a typical spreadsheet. There are numerous benefits to the culture of a company when you make investments in modern technology. And I won't read these to you. What I will share is that as decision makers, it's our job to introduce growth and change to the organization. And it's okay if not everybody comes along with you. You can have the best culture and you can have the best training programs, and there may still be people who look at this kind of automation and worry that it's replacing their job, or that this investment in technology couldn't be a partner for them. And nothing could be further from the truth. I would really highly encourage you not to resist making an investment because you worry if your team won't have the kind of culture or motivation to support it. It might be a chicken and egg scenario, where as soon as you do, they get really encouraged and inspired. So that's what I had to cover. I hope that's helpful. Anybody have any questions?